So if you guys are new here, I've always hated flat bottom drippers, but recently when I was teaching a class, one of my students asked me, Vince, why do you hate flat bottoms? What do you have against them? Well, I thought about it, and technically with my newfound understandings of coffee, I shouldn't hate them. Let me explain. So here we have two of the exact same coffees in a conical and in a flat bottom. Notice that they kind of look the same from this angle. But wait, but from here, it's an entirely different story. It's because the bed depth is very different. You can notice that on the V60, the tip goes all the way down here, and the coffee level is all the way out there. So the bed depth is kind of closer to that. Right now, there's that much of a bed depth. So the first particle of water has to travel all through that. Whereas the flat bottom, on a flat bottom, the bed depth really is this shallow. It's very shallow. It's very, very thin. It's very, very small. There's not a lot of distance you need to cover. So we're comparing something like this to something like that. And so in the V60, we're almost going through twice as much just to get to the bottom. Now, when I first started with flat bottoms, I used the Kalita. Now, the Kalita had its own set of different problems. It had a lot of clogging issues because of the 3 holes, only one would work. Now they have the ceramic one or some kind of adapter. I never got it. Blech. Not gonna work with the Kalita anymore. But now we have the April dripper. The April dripper works a lot better because it's just one big hole at the bottom. It doesn't have an obstructed flow. It's just amazing. Now, the problem with it is, as I showed you, is the shallow bed. Now, a shallow bed means when I do a first pour, the first drip's gonna come out much quicker. But with my understandings of coffee and how we can change the way we pour, we can really fix those issues. Now, there's a couple of ways to do it. Now, most traditionally, we always do blooms, but if you're new here, I actually only do single pours. I don't really bloom anymore. The reason is you get an even more even extraction, so I don't need to bloom. Now, the solution really is to just pour from higher, get that droplet, because a droplet pour is kind of like, imagine belly flopping into the water. You're just gonna be on the surface, you don't go quite as deep. But when you dive in, that's when you have a stream and you go much deeper. So you want a belly flop on the top, just kind of hit the surface, let it stay on the surface before we evenly lift it up. Now, there's another really cool thing that's really good about flat bottoms. It's because it's just that they're wide. And when they're wide at the top, they're wider than the V60s. And so that just means there's more exposure for each grind of coffee to the open air. And so when we try to release the gases release a lot faster in a flat bottom, which means we're gonna have less bitterness and more sweetness. And so we're gonna be able to extract things a lot faster because the release of gases is what lets us take the water to extract everything in the middle. So the first thing I like to do is I always like to flatten the bed a little bit, give it a tap so it kind of packs itself. This allows me to have a longer first drip, so that little pack right over there. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pour from really high. You're going to see everything's just going to be hit with a droplet. The stream is not steady, and it's just a droplet pour. So we're going to be pouring from higher. Get that droplet pour going. Go to the edges. And because there's more surface area up here, the gases are going to have a lot easier time surfacing. That means that we can saturate all the grinds at a much easier rate because the gases acts like a barrier. And when it acts like a barrier, we need to get rid of it before we can actually get to the middle of the grounds. That's why having a wider surface allows us to get rid of the gases earlier. And that allows us to extract everything in a faster amount of time. So because I see that the gases have already mostly dissipated, we can just kind of give it a quick stir. So now we're going to take a look. We can see that there's a little bit of grinds. There's a little bit more granular top. That just means it's not fully extracted. I only use 240 grams of water for 20 grams of beans. So we're going to pour a little bit more water, get to that 300 rate. So it's a perfect 1 to 15. Move to the edges. And we're done. We're just going to let that drain and we'll talk about this taste. Now there's a couple of good things to to take away from the flat bottom drippers. Because it's wider at the bottom and it's more flat, that just means we have more chances to let more oils pass through. That's why maybe perhaps in this brewing method, there's going to be more oils than in a V60. So maybe a V60 ends up being more clear, and then something like a flat bottom has more oils. Noticeably, I can actually see more oils passing through at the top. So maybe it is true. Now, when it comes to the flat bottom, like I said, the main problem I had before was that it was flowing too quickly at the beginning. But with the addition of the droplet pour, we don't really have that issue anymore. So we've solved a lot of it, and we've made ourselves a pretty good coffee. Now, first, I wanted to let you guys know I had no idea what I was making. This was just probably one of my failed test batches that I pulled out of nowhere. It's still a pretty good coffee. It was a little bit darker. Maybe it was one of my espresso roasts or espresso tests for another one of my clients, but here we are. So I'm not too disappointed with the flat bottoms anymore. It was just my understanding of it back then wasn't quite as sophisticated as it is quite as now. So I still prefer the V60. I think that there is still more clarity, and then there's it still tastes a bit better. The flat bottoms to me taste a bit thin or a bit empty, even though a bit more of the oils are passing through. I think it's because of the way coffee grinds settle. Maybe this brew method really is better for bloom techniques or whatnot. I haven't tested as much. I am accepting and willing to try it out, so I will do that. I also, as a side note, the stag is on the way. I finally ordered one. I thought my friends had it. They kept telling me they had it. They went on vacation. They came back, did not have it. You know, it is what it is. I'll be testing around with it, so stay tuned for that. Like this video if you haven't already. Subscribe. Yeah. My name's Vincent. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye!